Hello all, welcome to DG360. If you're watching on YouTube, get your butts over here every single Thursday night week from 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We have ourselves a blast on the review show and After Dark. You guys got to hit it. Also, amazing whole e-giveaway. You want to check out the description below and get here live with us.
Man, look at the sky.
And this is brought to us by DigThat, and I love DigThat. His vibe is so freaking awesome. He says this is the best and worst of 3.23 so far.
Reflecting off the ocean, man. That's a hot day. Oh.
Hey, you. Good evening and morning to you. It's 3.23. It's dope. It's rough. It's a beautiful mess that might take some time to polish up. Let's just jump right in and get into the good, the bad, and the pending. Like up, sub up, and ring up like a boss. All the interface elements give the game a facelift and make the game feel new again. That new game smell is intoxicating. Visor elements make it easy for you to tell if your helmet is on, which is nice, especially if you've seen how many deaths by not wearing a helmet there are out there. There's also no more mistaking if your landing gear, Copan mode, or VTOL are on with the HUD elements, making them very clear. Crime stat notification is much easier to see and identify how much dirt you done now. Mobi-Glass is more of a complete tool now. I won't go into depth, but the visual eye candy is great. The drop-down menus clean up the contracts manager nicely, and it feels kind of fun to use, like when you get a new device in real life. Won't go into the character creator, except to say it's nice to be able to build a character that more reflects yourself or your creative tastes. I won't spoil the experience for you. EVA is a blast. I've been super excited about the change, then my buddy has been slowly swaying me to feel it's a bit unrealistic looking. Maybe it is. I'm not even sure anymore, but either way, it is way better an experience to use. The old EVA didn't look bad. It's more like that old school upright look that you've seen in NASA footage and movies. After trying 3.23, the old EVA feels stiff, kind of clunky, and worse, it's a mess trying to move through small spaces. EVA 2 is so much more agile. You can turn, change directions, and thread the needle like a boss. It's just a much more suitable, beautiful way to navigate interiors and free fall instead of slapping in the walls with the camera going nuts. Visually, I'd have preferred a more relaxed looking posture like Hancock, but then it had to contextually straighten out to get through tighter spaces. As it is, you'll dig it so much more than the old way, especially when coming in for a landing. The new water is the hotness. You can create waves and lakes in your ship and on foot. I haven't been able to create trenches of displaced water as dramatic as in CitizenCon because I'm a little scared to get too close in a ship because I've exploded after getting too close even though I wasn't touching it. That needs a looking at. I hope explosions aren't the intent going forward. This should be at worst a soft death that you can recover from with a tow from the SRV. One thing I didn't realize going in is that the water creates real-time reflections. I've heard but not seen that your ship is reflected too. So let us know if you've seen that. Physical shopping had become a game of trying to find the right angle to try to make a purchase. If it didn't come at a soda at just the right angle, you'd have to try again from another angle. Now the F button prompt pops up at whatever you're looking at and you just hold F down till the transaction's complete. Only problem so far is that instead of picking it up with your hand, it goes into the local inventory.
That made me really hungry.
Unless I'm missing something here. Let me know in the comments if there's a way to do that. The LODs are crazy. Besides seeing POIs from much longer distances, you can see every planet from everywhere.
Pseudo accuracy. Burrito physics.
Distribution centers are huge. I'll save them for another video because at this point I haven't been able to do much with them besides explore the bottom level, which is easy to get lost in. You can take on various FPS missions there, interior and exterior, but various bugs have kept me from getting too far. Once was a bug that basically made all of standing into an armistice zone and you couldn't pull your weapon out anywhere, but that's been fixed up. Last run falling through the planet fixed me up real good, so there's some work to do. I want a pet Copan, be like a Klingon Targ for your boy. Be cool to have them guarding your player bases, maybe have bird feeders to attract mercs, which I've not found in game yet, so if you know where they are, let us know. The pack of Copians I ran up on were immortal and unable to leave where they spawned at, but like any good wildlife expert, I got too close and nature took its course. FPS Combat is pretty live. Going from an old arcade shooting gallery to seeing enemies sprint around a corner catches you off guard and makes it more exciting. I didn't think I'd use dynamic crosshairs much, but I find myself naturally using it like it's been in game for years. It's perfect when you need a quick spray without aiming, since aiming down sight isn't as quick as it is in 3.22. Being able to break a reload animation to sprint away is just what the witch doctor ordered. I thought backpack reloading would take longer, leaving you vulnerable for a good amount of time, but it's actually fairly quick. Ammo repooling does take a long time, but it's super useful for conserving rounds. I don't know about you, but when I'd have 2 or 3 rounds left in the mag, I just fire them off to get rid of the magazine. Now you don't have to worry about partial mags because you can just hit left alt +1 to combine all the crumbs into a single magazine. So one less reason to leave the space stations littered with discarded magazines. I didn't get to progress through to the higher levels, but even the very low risk targets have some fight to them. The enemies aren't just out sightseeing while you're hitting them with the butt of
There's a lot of quality of life
tagging one of them, their wingmate
really
will put pressure on you, which for the first time really requires you to put some shield management to work. The reduced speed of master mode shrinks the combat distances, and fighting for position out of reach of guns and enemy wingmen are more important than ever now. Combat's more engaging, demanding, and dynamic. There's sub-targeting available now, but I wasn't able to get to that, so you have to tell me how you dig it. I'm anxious to try ship combat with more difficult targets, but even at lower levels, you'll feel the difference right away. So if you haven't heard, persistent hangars and freight elevators aren't ready yet, so they're being pushed back to the 3.23.x patch. Of course, it's gonna be some disappointment, but if it ain't ready, it ain't ready. But it's damn near ready, so you won't have to be impatient for very long. And 3.23 is still filled to the brim with that new. Work on the clouds has cleaned up the bulk of the noise in the clouds with the higher settings, and if your PC doesn't blow up with the reference/photo settings, they are a sight to behold. Not quite Microsoft Flight Simulator level, but they look good. The new looting UI takes some getting used to. It's completely different than just dragging things from one box to the other, but once you get it, it makes looting bodies super quick. Weirdly, you can't seem to pick up another gun if you already have 2 on your backpack, so you better bring a box. Also, you gotta switch over to the normal inventory system if you want to throw stuff in your ship or into boxes. The prone animations are about as fluid as you can get. No matter what position you find yourself in, you can aim your weapon and adjust your body to suit the situation.
Very sexual too.
Tobii Eye Tracker is incredibly crisp now. The movement always felt a bit exaggerated to me, but now it's so perfectly in sync with your head movements, it's crazy. The update did disable my eye movement, and there's a million settings to look through, plus using their own specific terms. It's gonna take some time to figure out how to get that back on. The star map portion of the new map is awesome, visually and functionally. It did feel a little temperamental setting routes sometimes, but that's been cleaned up and it's an exciting change. Being able to type in a search for a location, I can't say enough how useful that is. One unannounced change that was included is instead of arriving and following 2 and 3 OM points to a surface POI, you arrive at the planet, and if the location's on the far side, the next jump in the route is just one spline jump around it. Obviously, stations and other satellites still require the OM jumps, but surface POIs have less steps in the routes now. But one request would be to add a long press to F2 so that we can choose to go directly to the star system level of the map instead of having to start at the ship level and then zooming out. Minimap is in the early state. Ships, landing zones, space stations have minimap functionality, but not much beyond that. They will be adding in more locations with each patch, but for the moment they're cool to look at and play with for a bit, but not something anybody would depend on except new players who don't know their way around the space stations and cities, and my boy Captain Rico. But newbies can tap R to make a path they can follow to the location they want to get to. P4 AR used to look hot, now he's wearing a house robe with curlers in his hair and product on his face. I'm sure a lot of folks would disagree, but visually it's been changed from the swaggy shooter with buttons and a little screen and the bulk of an AR to a submachine looking paintball spitter. I'm assuming
I love him, man. I love him.
when it was done to make it look more like the actual SMG of the same brand, which makes it confusing to differentiate. It's one thing I'm not a fan of in the verse, making things of the same brand into small, medium, and large duplicates of each other. I've had to redo this section a few times because every new build and hotfix, performance improves. It's gone from insanely laggy, low frame rate to not too far from being on par with live for the most part. There's still some pretty bad performing areas, especially planet surfaces, which can get down into the teens for frame rate. Depending on the shard, lag can be incredibly bad.
Yeah,
sometimes as bad as a minute or so to open.
This is the thing, like Eric's saying, and making fun of people that are still calling this a scam, which is obvious at this point that they're doing it for clicks and monetization, right? Because Eric's like, but I heard from somewhere SE is a scam. How can this be? You know, you still hear that to this day. I think pretty much when you hear that at this point, it's just content creators trying to get clicks and monetize. And at this point, you see how far we have come. Like, really, I don't understand why you can't be excited about this progress. Like people are making you feel ashamed for being excited for seeing how far we've come. Hell, just the map alone are improvements that are crazy, off the wall bonkers, man. I can't even believe that people are still calling this a scam. It's insane. Like how successful the amount of revenue that they're bringing in is business, right? the progress that we're seeing, and as transparent as they're being, is what they're showing us every single week with 2 shows every single week inside Star Citizen Live. Talk about like what developers out there are doing this and being this consistent and communicating with their fans. I don't know of any. And people get upset that they've brought in this kind of money, right? But if you're a fan, aren't you like happy? You know, aren't you happy that they're bringing in the money and that they're financially healthy and that they're able to create this game? Because even people that have been covering Star Citizen for over a decade, I'm not going to name them, you can still hear in their tone and their narrative that they believe that the game isn't going to be released, or that like even the oldest content creators still bring you that kind of clickbait bullshit. And it really gets me upset to this point where it's like, can't people see what's happening? Can't people see the progress? And still, even with the oldest content creators out there, they don't understand the scope. There are still content creators making Star Citizen content that have been doing 10 plus years that still don't understand the scope of this game. And it's like, motherfuckers, you've been following this for 10 years. You can't understand the scope of this game? You've been reporting on it? Of course they understand. They've been following it for 10 years, and they're bringing out clickbait so they can monetize you. And it's so apparent to me, and I hope my audience can see it too. I know that most of my audience can see it, you know? So it is crazy to me. And I'm not saying DigThat is that at all. And in fact, DigThat is not. DigThat's all about the feels and the vibes. And I love his content. He keeps it funny. He keeps it light. He keeps it real. I dig him. But like, there's so many other people out there that are just giving you this narrative where they're telling you it's a scam, or they're telling you, oh, it's never coming out, and it's like, what are they watching? Are they not watching the same? Of course they're watching the same thing that we're watching. They're selling you like a false narrative, you know? I don't know, man. It doesn't feel like they're fans to me. It doesn't feel like they're fans to me when they do that at all.
Open an elevator door. It's not like that all the time, but in the wrong shard, it's present enough to drain your spirit a little bit. Everything takes time to be cleaned up and tip top.
I respect what Starlet's saying, you know? Like, Starlet's like, hey, there's truth in what both sides are saying. It's just what you resonate with. Yeah, like, I like what I'm seeing. Do I get pissed about the physics all the time? All the time? There's a lot of the gameplay that I get pissed with. But, like, I guess I'm just, like, super patient, you know? Like, I'm coming to this with the understanding that they're going to keep the progress up. You know, like, I'm coming to this realizing that development will keep happening. And I get frustrated like everybody else, but like, I guess I'm just taking a breath and letting them do what they got to do, you know? But because of the scope of this game and what they're trying to achieve, there's going to be hiccups. There's going to be portions of this journey we all know where there has been movement backwards, like there has been, right? But like I'm seeing this direction, and I'm happy with it. I guess is what I'm trying to say. All in all, you know. Yeah, it's started to say maybe they were fans of the narrative sold and they're not so happy with what's on their PC. It's complicated. Yeah, there's a lot of facets to this. You're right, Starlet. You know, I guess I'm coming to this with the understanding that the scope of this game is going to be huge and that it is trying to be the everything game, you know. And Chris is exuberant, and Chris came out initially very like, you know, this is what dreamers do. They're showing you what's inside their brain. They're selling you like, here's where we are going to be, right? And like Chris, we know, jumps the gun all the time. It's just the way the dude is built. A lot of dreamers do that, and they have to be careful because they're literally like living in the moment, and the moment could be like years and years and years and years and years away, but they're living in it, and they're trying to share the vision with you. So they're bringing you into it with them. And then you're like, and then you're playing the game, and you're like, wait a second, this isn't at all what the dude was selling me, right? So, but if you come to this with like patience And you kind of like, if people get upset, like just go outside, touch some grass, you know what I'm saying? Play another title, come back to it. Then like, I don't get the rage sometimes. I don't get the rage, I guess. I guess I'm just like a super patient dude. You know what I mean? But I see the progress. I see it.
Can't come fast enough. Vulcan is a mixed bag at this point. It varies from user to user, but some have reported extremely higher frame rates with much higher stuttering, and others like my guy G-Ro's going gray, waiting for the shaders to compile.
Like Fathers is talking 11 years later, and we are still throwing out flight models and starting over. Yeah, we are. I mean, like, you know, like really, the changes with flight had to happen, but you know, master modes in itself, like there's a lot of people that got upset with master modes. The whole idea of it came out, remember? And, you know, you always have to balance realism and fun. When you're developing a game, when you're designing a game, it's always going to be about this balance of like, okay, the real versus the fun. I tend to go a little bit more realism, but like I'm really hardcore gamer, right? But like I understand when that fun aspect comes in. It's just like when it weighs too heavily on the fun, like way over the fun, and the realism gets squashed, then you start to get me like a little bit upset, you know.
For me, I went from 19 frames a second near a distribution center on Hurston with the wind blowing particles everywhere to 35 frames after switching to Vulcan. Right now, this comes with some caveats at this early stage.
This is a great discussion, by the way. This is what happens on the channel. If you're part of DG360, thank you for being here. Like, you know, like you're used to having videos paused on you because we tend to have discussions all the time like this. Zav says, I felt all the emotions good and bad with this game, but feeling scammed, nope. And I never have either. I've never felt like, oh my God, I'm being scammed, because I've never committed more capital than I can, than is good for me, right? It's all discretionary, you know, like the amount of money that I've supported Cloud Imperium with in my pledges buying these ships, like, has never been an amount that would break me. Like there's people out there, like I remember a long time ago, if anybody remembers FTR, failure to report, guy spent like tens of thousands, I don't know what, you know, this is from what I've gathered. I don't know exactly, but like he spent a lot of money on the game, and then it just it's taking a long time to come out. And he's like, I'm upset. Or like, you know, we interviewed Bucha from, what was it? Cost Sunk Fallacy. Remember Bucha? Or Binky, nice dude, but he was a VC. He was a venture capitalist. We interviewed him on the channel years ago, and he was just like, man, I'm not going to wait around for returns. And I get that as a venture capitalist. Like I get where he's coming from. He put money in, and he's not going to wait any much longer. This is before Kickstarter. He was approached, and they had some venture capitalist money, and you know they got to own pieces of Cloud Imperium. So there was a portion of time when they did that. And I get why he was upset. And then he, you know, went on a kind of a crusade to make videos that were like, hey, this is what I'm upset about. Completely valid, right? You had a guy who invested money, and he was like, okay, I'm upset that I'm not getting any return on my investment. That's a guy who literally put his money where his mouth was, and he was like, okay, I'm not getting it. Okay, I understand that. I personally thought the guy was a pretty nice guy when I talked to him, and I understood his point of view, right? But as a dude that, you know, hasn't spent a ton of money on this, that has been following this a very long time, that has an amazing community here, you know, of really cool people. I've never felt like this was a scam. You know, like I agree with Zav. I've never at any point felt like this was a scam. And maybe it's because, you know, I don't think it has anything to do with money. It's just, to me, it's more about the progress. You know, it's more about what I'm seeing and understanding that this game has a huge scale, you know? Yeah, or Backspace is reminding me of when, what was that guy's name? The guy starts with a Y, Yavix or Yamix. Remember Yamix? And he was comparing Star Citizen to Duke Nukem Forever? Like, what? Like, come on. Like, you remember when Yamix, this was like a couple months ago, and you guys linked me this video to watch from Yamix, and Yamix literally compared Star Citizen to Duke Nukem Forever. And I'm like, I can't take this dude seriously anymore. You know, like, that's good, Starlet. That's good.
like some of the UI breaking. Combining DLSS with Vulcan got me up to 52 frames a second in the same area. So Vulcan has a bright future ahead of it, especially when they turn on multi-threading and call other cores in from their smoke breaks. Then the difference should be even more dramatic. Upscaling in DX11 is not the business. It's blurry, it's not a big jump in frames. It's probably not your cup of Earl Grey, but like I mentioned earlier, they work with Vulcan much better. Chat keeps changing and had a window around it, which kind of cluttered up the screen, but that's been removed. Right now, it doesn't always stay at the bottom of the feed where the new chats come in. Not sure where it's gonna land by the time it gets live, so we'll just have to wait and see. Master modes is an interesting addition. If you don't do combat, then it's hard to see any advantages or disadvantages. It just kind of feels like an extra step, but once you get into combat, whether aggressively or unwilling, it's a brave move.
Listen. What's up, Trip? How you doing? 37 months like a boss. Predator mounts in the house. What's up, Trip? How you doing, buddy?
Get mounted. This message brought to you by Predator Mounts.
Thank you. What's up, Trip? Good to see you here, buddy. 37 months like a boss. Go over to Predator Mounts, put DG360 in there, and get yourself a discount off of any mounting hardware you want. Trust me, it gets really kinky over at Predator Mounts. It's not just PCs anymore. All different types of mounting hardware.
Get mounted. This message brought to you by Predator Mounts.
I love you, Trip. It's good to see you, man. Still drinking that coffee, bro. Goddamn, Trip got me this 42 ounces of coffee. Oh my God, it's been sustaining me. Your coffee has been making me live these past couple months, bro. Thank you. Go on. Eric says Kuato needs a new mount. Yes, he does. Eric.
Whoa. If you're not looking for no smoke, but combat comes looking for you anyway, each click of the B button punctuates the life or death aspect of it. Survivability depends on the abilities of your ship. If you're in SCM mode, you got your shields and weapons standing by.
You gotta love it.
If you know an instigator will eventually get through your shields and you cut to run by turning on nav mode, you got this ramp up period before you swap to nav mode and get moving quicker. And during that transition, your shields are falling. You got incoming fire, making clean getaways less likely. So bugging out as soon as you see a red target are the standing orders if you want to make it out completely intact. At first, nav mode addressed something that a lot of people have always found awkward all these years. We've always had to have our quantum drive spooling up for a jump in order to see an overlay of the location we're flying to. We've gotten used to it, but somewhere in the back of the mind, it's always been a tiny bit distracting to have that drive going with the sound effects running. In the earlier 323 builds, you could see the location overlays while in nav flight mode. That's been changed back to how it's always been, which is too bad because it felt more natural and nice. Something I didn't notice till I was damn near wrapping the vid up is that you use up oxygen.
Oh, that's great, Star.
I went out to EVA for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then I got into the ship and my oxygen is down to the lower 80s%. As I'm walking, my ship must have pockets of no atmo because the lung icon zeroes out and I pass out. And luckily I fall into an area with oxygen. So I pick myself up, go back out into space and watch my oxygen level slowly deplete. I reboard and I notice the oxygen isn't going up, or if it is, it's really slow. So I take the helmet off and my suit reads 0 oxygen. Put the helmet back on and the oxygen icon flashes for a second and shows it filling up, but the suit only fills up to 81%. It has gone up 1% though. So oxygen is actually a consumable now. It takes a really long time to deplete, but it raises the question of, is there a way to refill it faster if you needed to, which would be a super rare occasion.
We're going to watch that tomorrow, actually. It's an interesting question DigThat's posing, and Erad actually just messaged me tonight, and he was talking about the O2 UI and the mechanics on it. So I think we've got a video on board tomorrow for the morning show, watching that.
That most people won't encounter at the rate that it goes up and down. I got to add in that in the few minutes I took to gather my thoughts here, the oxygen went up to 95%. So it doesn't seem likely to ever be a problem.